All right, Doc Rivers, although he says he doesn't want to be Doc Rivers anymore, he wants to be Glenn Rivers. Jay Williams. Keyshawn, Jay Will, and Zubin, you hear him weekday mornings right here on 97.3 ESPN from 6 to 10 a.m. And I know he thought that Doc was the no-brainer for the 76ers. There was a couple of choices. Jay, appreciate you joining us here. And now that the dust is settled, he is the guy. Why is Doc Rivers the right fit for this very weird roster?
Wait, guys, first off, I don't want to be called Jay anymore, okay? There's a big-time Jay in Philadelphia. I'd rather be called David. I just want you guys to know that's my middle name. I will go on from David from now on.
All right, the rest of this conversation, he will be David Williams.
Yes. You have Glenn Rivers and you have David Williams. That's my father's name, so it's good. The reason why I thought he was good is that, look, every time I've had a chance to be around Ben Simmons, I would watch that relationship between Ben and Brett Brown. It felt as if there was respect, but there wasn't that strong accountability from Brett Brown to Ben, right? And Joel, super talented at times, young in his approach to different things. There wasn't somebody that had the history, had the accolades to say to him, this is not who you're going to be on my team. And I say all those words tactfully because in order to lead big-time personalities, you need a coach who brings championship experience to the table, right? There has to be something that has the attention of your star players. And I know people can then use that argument against me and say, well, how about Kawhi? And it's a different thing that happened. I mean, they tried to put this team together in a year. They brought in different pieces. The dynamic of this team is different. I really do feel like this team in Philly, they want to be great. Like they really do. And I've never felt like Ben and Joel are on the same page. And if there's a person that can make this team be his family and get them to buy into each other, it's Doc knows how to do that better than a lot of other coaches I've ever seen. And you can always judge the X's and O's, but that feeling that it brings to the camaraderie of them playing for each other. I've never seen Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid play for each other. I've seen them play with each other, but not for each other. And I think Doc can do that.
It's a very interesting point. Over the Brett Brown era, we've gone back and forth with listeners who couldn't stand Brett. They needed him gone. He was the worst. It was time to go, and yada, yada. And I want to ask you, as a guy who played in the league, studies the league, knows the league very well, I'm not diminishing the role of the NBA coach by any stretch of the imagination. But the players play, and it's a players' league. I like Doc as a leader of men. As an X's and O guy, I don't know what he brings to the table. You would probably know more about that than me. But as a leader of men, that to me is almost the most important role as an NBA coach. What do you value and view with an NBA coach?
You have to be a manager of personality. I can hire people to draw up the right X's and O's, right? That's what you have associate head coaches for. That's what you have your staff for. Obviously, you know, if you're looking for D, all the above, of course you would love to have a coach that can do it all. But, I mean, think about this, guys. Like 3 years ago, like Brad Stevens was like the darling of the NBA. Think about how quickly that changed when he had to coach Kyrie Irving, right? Like, you're like, oh, Brad Stevens great at X's and O's. Like, I don't know how Brad Stevens does managing strong personalities. Granted, that's Kyrie, but those are the things you have to ask. So my thing is, for a guy like Doc Rivers, like I need somebody to draw a line in the sand and to say to Ben Simmons, okay, like bring in Magic Johnson. Like you have to shoot 2 shots a game. If you do not, you're not going to play. Hey, Joel, I don't need this immature attitude. I need you to be the leader of us. Like, and this is what I mandate from you each and every day. And if you don't, then fine. It's going to be my way or the highway. And that also needs to come from management. That needs to come from the ownership. That gives you the clout to do that. And I think Doc can actually be in touch with that kind of energy to manage the personalities on this team.
If Doc can bring this team to play for one another, as you mentioned, do you think that this roster works, or do you still think that there needs to be at least some sort of change?
Oh, my man. I mean,
come on, David. Come on, David. You got this, David.
I know. If you guys, I sit there and I watch the NBA Finals, and granted, I think the Miami Heat are playing well, and I'm like, man, I can't imagine what it would have looked like if we had Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, and Jimmy Butler playing against LeBron James, AD, and the cast of characters for the Lakers right now. Like, I think about it all the time. I actually think the matchups would have worked out well. I don't know where Al Horford is in his career, granted. I think that was a move just to try to get out of the East, and I think it kind of backfired with that huge contract considering his age. I think you have to do some jostling of pieces. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but you need to find consistent shooting on this team. But it's not like we're talking about the East being as difficult as the West, guys. I mean, the team defensively is built to compete with the Boston Celtics. It's built to compete with the Toronto Raptors team that's getting older. You don't know what's happening with Marc Gasol or Kyle Lowry. It's obviously Brooklyn's going to be a different entity, but I like Ben Simmons. I like Ben Simmons guarding KD, right? I like some of the pieces you guys have there. Right? It's going to take leadership, and it's going to take a jostling of some pieces to be a little bit more dynamic and to have more shooting around. But, yes, I think if they can play for each other, they will be in the mix in the Eastern Conference. They're right there.
Doc said they had won, or Glenn said they had won 65% of their games when those two guys play together. There's this thought that they can't coexist. Where do you stand on that? I mean, 65% is nice. Is it just, you piled up a lot of regular season wins, playoffs are different? Or no, when they play together, they can win. It's keeping them healthy is the biggest problem.
When have they been their best together, though? I guess the question that you guys watch their team every single day. I watch all the league. When do you think the last time Joel Embiid was in top shape condition?
Have we ever seen that?
That's a question, isn't it? Doesn't that blow your mind? So when I see Ben Simmons push the ball down the court in a new age of the NBA where it's fast-paced, it's space, it's three-point shooting, and then I see a traditional center who is kind of like logging his way down the court, I'm always going back to, like, why isn't Joel Embiid in shape? Where's the accountability from Joel Embiid there? Like, Joel Embiid needs to play faster. Joel Embiid should be like AD. I'm not saying he's like AD because he'll never be that skinny, but his conditioning needs to be at a level where he can play at a faster pace. He can post up. He can utilize him in a pick-and-pop scenario. You need shooting around him. Yes, I would love to see them on the court together, but I don't believe Joel Embiid's conditioning is at the point it needs to be in order for this team to play faster. And they don't need to be a team that just lugs their way down the court to play half-court basketball. That's not where the league is. And if I watch Glenn Rivers do this with DeAndre Jordan, I think Glenn Rivers has a chance to do this with Joel Embiid. I really do. He transformed DeAndre Jordan. And I think he has to transform Joel Embiid, but Joel has to want it, and people need to hold him accountable because he is the key. I'm going to tell you guys, I feel like I know what I'm going to get from Ben Simmons. Yeah, I may worry about his shooting from time to time. I do not know what I'm going to get from Joel Embiid. And it first starts with his conditioning being held to the highest priority.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Those two are the ones that we need to, to really step up and be the best version of themselves. But what about Tobias Harris? He had his best years under Doc Rivers, and I think that has to have some value because let's be realistic. We need him to play like he did in L.A. when he was shooting from three at 42% clip, and we heard Doc talk about maybe implementing more pick and rolls for him. What do you think about that?
I think for him, I think Tobias is a guy that when he was in L.A., he had the ball in his hands a little bit more to create. And, I don't know if it was psychologically for him, not really believing in himself. I mean, a lot of games, you could tell that he was the leader of this team. He's the guy that was outspoken. He spoke like it. Even though you knew that your superstars were Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, even though Tobias Harris got paid superstar money. I think it's about finding a consistent rhythm for him offensively. And the ball is dominated by Ben. Obviously, you want to get Joel in the mix. And I think for Tobias being that third option where you're not getting as many touches, I think for Tobias, having him handle the ball just a little bit more and being involved in pick and roll. The only thing that challenges about this is when you have Tobias involved in pick and roll, where do you put Ben? Because whenever you put Ben, if he's not willing to shoot the ball, this goes back to accountability, guys. Even if you put him in the weak side corner, you're going to have the defense rotate over because they're going to have to force Ben to prove it. So you can overload any side towards Tobias Harris, which is going to make it more challenging for him to score, right? So this goes back into accountability. Accountability for Ben Simmons to take shots, to be aggressive, to drive, right? And then accountability for Joel to play faster. Imagine if you were to push the ball up the court very quickly and Tobias or Ben, whoever has the ball, acts as the pseudo point guard for that possession. And you have a quick screen and roll, either that's Al Horford or Joel Embiid. a roll to the basket, the weak outside big comes up and splits open to the top and can shoot it, knock it down. Speed is everything in this league. I think if you made the game faster and you utilize his versatility more, I think he would be more valuable as a player on the court.
All right, we'll leave you with this. Jay Will, a.k.a. David Will today, just for this show.
Just today.
Can an NBA coach make an NBA player shoot, number one? And number two, if you were a coach, would you want to coach Ben Simmons?
If I were a coach, I answer the latter part of your question. I would love to coach Ben Simmons because I see a fierce competitor inside of Ben all the time. He may not say or lead the way people want him to lead yet, but he's still relatively very young in the big scheme of things. I think his talent is off the charts. It speaks for itself. And then as it relates to can you change mentalities, I think first and foremost, the player has to want to change. But what you can do is there could be a policy in place that you implement as long as you have the backing of ownership and your front office, once again, guys, of accountability. And here's what I love about Doc. You have to be strong enough to bench guys. So fans may not like it, but my thing is, it tells you a lot about your personality if I bench you, how you respond. And my thing is, if Joel Embiid needs to be benched, then Doc Rivers is going to need to bench him.
Mm-hmm.
If they're not stepping up and guys aren't playing, you have to draw a line in the sand and say, hey, you may be getting paid big-time money, but your effort here is not acceptable. And strong coaches have the ability to do that, but they can only do that with the backing of management and ownership.
He's Jay Williams. You can listen to him tomorrow morning on Keyshawn, Jay Will, and Zubin, 6 to 10. He's going by David Williams for the purpose of this conversation today. So, David, we appreciate you jumping on board with us. Thanks so much, man.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you guys. Have a good day.
@RealJWill on Twitter. And he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Great stuff.